Thank you for inviting me. Hello. I want to talk about Future Fictions. It's a project we did for an exhibition with the same name in Hasselt at the venue Z33. But before, I want to talk a little bit about what we do in the office and what we are interested at. So as it was introduced, we are architects' office, but a huge part of our work is also producing visual articles, you could say visual journalism. We publish these works in magazines like Wired, or we have a kind of verbal agreement to publish in every Mark magazine a spread. And I just want to, because it's important to hear that, to understand also this Future Fiction project. Here I have a quote. Usually I don't like to start with quotes, but okay, the red is not there. But that's, I think, is an interesting one. So if you talk about the future, we have to go back in time. This Bruce Sterling is a science fiction writer. He says at least twice as far. I think that's very, how do I say, optimistic. So that would mean that if he writes a science fiction novel about 2050, he would only have to look back 100 years. So maybe that's why the science fiction looks is very familiar to us, because they don't look back much farther. I love to look back much further in the past. I think my lecture will be mostly about the past, and because I love to understand the context and the biggest context. This, for example, can I take that? Is this possible? I'm too. Yeah, great, thanks. So this is a little attempt to show the movement of the Homo sapiens through the globe. So if the theory is right, we all originate in Africa 70,000 years ago, and then we spread out through the globe. And at each and every corner, we reached dead ends. So here, this was our last station where we came 10,000 years ago. We reached the southern point of South America. In Europe, we hit quite soon a dead end, and in Africa. So that was that was our faith till somehow 500 years ago. We were stuck on these little islands on each and every. But then ships were invented much earlier, but ships made some shortcuts between these dead ends, and a whole system of around the world developed. So these shortcuts or these dead ends were cut, and we had suddenly connections. I mean, I'm telling the whole story very much from a Western point of view, as I am a European, I just tell it about how the Europeans see it and did it. Today we experience different. I mean, today we live in different speeds, but more or less it's the same thing. So these dead ends, these are the submarine cables of the internet. The internet is in 90 or more than 90% delivered via cables. So it's not a ethereal media. It's a very much terroristic. Not terroristic, but okay. It's an Earth-based media, so it's the message is transported through cables over land. When these are the submarine infrastructure. Or is there? Yeah, I tried to. That's actually going back to the time of globalization. That's what we are interested in. And these works, these articles we do, like for submarine cables, we call snapshots of globalization. So these are snapshots because I don't know if maybe there are 2 more cables right now. We have done this 2 years ago. So every month new cables appear, old cables are abandoned, and so on. So we only can make snapshots about this phenomenon which is called globalization, and which I'm not sure if we are still in globalization. So it's because globalization is a period which started some 500 years ago with the kind of proof of the roundness of the Earth by Magellan. So he circumvented the world within three years, and this was the start of kind of the phenomenon we call globalization. And these are the different steps in the you could say project of globalization. So first it was a territorial project, then it was a communication project. With the world fairs, it was all about productions. Reintroduction of Olympics, it was about sports, architecture, international style, politics, United Nations, culture, pop culture, and final state, or maybe it's a new state, is information. The red line, which you see, is the speed of how long it takes to go around the world. So globalization is also a acceleration project. So here it's 3 years with the ship more or less leveled out, and Yuri Gagarin made another leveling out with his 1.5 hours or 90 minutes, and it's not, we are not able to do it much faster. We do it, actually it's very interesting that yesterday the World Circumvention by a solar plane was finished. So we do it as Magellan, again with natural powers, but in a new, more refined way. Maybe that's the start of a new Magellan, or a new second phase of globalization. I mean, the whole thing we did draw out in detail. I brought the whole thing with me. Pure, yeah. I printed it out. It's lying around in the office anyway. I thought I'd just take it with me. So the thing is, lectures always so kind of just have one media, which is always this. Yeah, thank you. I thought, why not? I never did bring a print with me to a lecture. But I thought, okay, it's lying around, and I don't know. Maybe you also prefer to look at the printed thing for a moment. So here you see the sketch I had before in detail, and we somehow framed periods in the globalization. First is discover, so we discovered the planet. The second phase was countermeasure, so we counted actually and measured what we discovered. That's interestingly, of course, the period where zoos and museums appeared in Europe. So we brought elephants, giraffes, all the weird creatures we found. We brought them there, measured them, and collected them in zoos. Same with, of course, with museums and other things. And organization is we established organization stations which organized our discoveries, our measurements, and so on. So that's that. Interestingly enough, of course, museums are questions, zoos are questions again. Why should we actually have elephants here when they can be free in Africa, and so on. So that's that. Here you see the milestones, and actually the red thing is again, the red line is again the speed of circumvention. These are milestones in speeding up the world circumvention of different airplanes and rockets and so on. Interestingly enough, I mean, I think we did it in 2005 or 6. At the end, it was Abu Ghraib. I mean, the World Trade Center 2001 was, of course, a kind of cut, and then there was Abu Ghraib, and I always tried, as you do with timelines, you always extend it. And I mean, if you look back so far, you hope to get some ideas for the future, but I never achieved it, or we never could extend it, not even 1 year. I had no imagination what would come afterwards, and I could not have imagined 2016 as we are in now. Could not have imagined what happens now in Europe and so on. And Donald Trump, I would not have dreamed about him. It's weird afterwards to see that. I mean, it's 10 years ago, and yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting. It's not that I'm now sad that I didn't have Donald Trump on, but it's just interesting to see that. Somehow I'm happy I did not do it because I would have been wrong anyway. One event I really like, it's not really part of future thinking, or so maybe it is an event which is very unnoticed, and it's the International Meridian Conference 1884 in Washington, where, I mean, it's unnoticed. It's not so praised as it is, as I think it should be praised and should be praised or noticed as a milestone in globalization, where a group of people actually agreed on the coordinate system around the world, and where the world finally was captured in a web, in a net, like an Excel sheet, at the point of time where there were no satellites, no GPS system or whatsoever. So this is actually this kind of bunch of people at the high point of globalization. These are the globalizers, the masters of globalization. They actually captured the world into an Excel sheet. So every information we have today can be pointed exactly to a point somewhere here in this web, which allows us today actually also to draw maps, to trace us with mobile phones and so on. And that's the base of our, let's say, doing, of our snapshots of globalization. We rely a lot on this data and information. And this is, for example, I just showed two examples. This is one example where we show a second phase of, how do you call it, discovery, yes, because this is Street View in the year 2011, I think. So all of the world, all surface of the world, which is covered by Street View. So it's all in white. So what is dark gray? These areas, shit, I'm too short. These areas are not covered by Street View. The other colors are different providers, like Russia, you don't see it so well, has Yandex. South Korea has a different provider. So, but the biggest provider of Street View images is Google, and I think today it will look quite different. So this is a snapshot from 4 or 5 years ago. So you see there's a new discovery of the planet and a new, let's say, organization going on. This is another kind of, I mean, here we don't talk about the future, but we implement that there is more to come. I mean, this is now, but in the future there will be much more white spots. This is a map of the future, because this does not exist yet. But this is the Iron Silk Road. This is the 3 major railway lines between China and Europe, which will be finished in 10, 15 years, which is mostly financed by China. And this reduces, let's say, the transport link between China and Europe from 28 days to 3 days. So now it takes around a month to go from Europe to China by ship. The railway would make it in 2 to 3 days. And it's mostly for transportation of goods, but it's also another kind of gluing together of the world and, how do you call it, acceleration of movement. And this is a map which is, or it is not existing now. I mean, it's under construction, but it is a map which will be probably most likely true in 10 to 15 years. And 3 lines, of course, because 1 line is always disturbed by war or, it's like the internet. You have to have 3 lines that communication, and in this way, in this regard, goods are flowing. So now I'm at, actually, that was just to explain the context a little bit of what we do and how we work. And for future fictions, our subtitle or title is Believe, Know and Feel. Set 33 asked us to visualize, let's say, the history of future thinking in many aspects. So in art, in architecture, in science and so on. So what we did first, we actually collected all information we could get from any way of future thinking. Of course, the Oracle of Delphi is one of the most famous institutions which provided future thinking, but we made a whole catalog. And this catalog we plotted on a timeline. So this is actually only a page of this catalog of the people, like the oracle of the thinkers, of future thinkers. And we also tried to organize it. So here we have, let me see, oracles, which were quite a hype in the beginning. And then we have prophets. Then we have scientists and speculators of today. Mostly speculators or futurologists are the future thinkers. And this actually led us to how should we present it. I mean, that is kind of would be quite a boring representation and would not really speak to you as something you would understand the deeper meaning what we try to communicate. Then we looked at how actually representations were done. This is, for example, let's say medieval representation. It's not about the future, but it's about Christ and his whole. I think it was 1 or at least 2 days how he ended up on the cross. He appears in several times on image. You see him here, in several places. It's one painting, but it tells us it's almost like a comic strip, but it's very flat. I mean, it's before the discovery of the perspective. And then we thought actually what we would like to do is something like a perspective. And this is actually also what I realized what is really interesting in the perspective, that it is a timeline. So this here is not this. It's very flat, but is that. Because what is further back in the image is further back in time. So at the very front, it's closer because you would have to walk there, and it would take you maybe 2 minutes to walk there. If you go further back, it's 5 minutes, so it's 10 minutes. So every perspective is the realization of space and time in one image. And that's what we tried in our representation, so that we have here the timeline. So we have here the 21st century, then we have the birth of Jesus, and we go even further back. So we kind of use the perspective as a timeline and organize the different sections of our investigation on the image. What we also realized is actually we can define the future thinking in different eras. Once there was religion, which was the owner of the future, and since actually the age of enlightenment, science is the owner of the future. So we believe now if somebody talks about the future, maybe now not so, but at least 50, 100 years ago, it was scientists. And if a scientist said it will be like that and that, we would have or still believe scientists or experts. As we believed 300 or let's say 700 years ago, if the priest said something about the future, he was our institution for future thinking. So we organized all our information also in let's say in images which represent different sections of future thinking within this coordinate system, this three-dimensional coordinate system. So this is a ground section of it. We developed different sections, like the truth machines, the great escape, the beauty, stability, playing God, immortality, utopias, and so. So these are different sections in future thinking. Like the truth machines, I like a lot, is like the pyramids were for us kind of truth machines as much as cathedrals. Cathedrals were houses where the truth was told, as we have now the CERN Hadron Collider in Switzerland, which is somehow a machine that should tell us the truth. So architecture is not only form or an object, but it is a tool to, in this way, I mean not every architecture, but in this way, architecture is a tool for telling the truth or telling you the future. And in, let's say then in space, in the exhibition, it looked like that. Make just a close-up, where you have, for example, the truth machines at the very left, going from the cathedral, Notre Dame, to the Hadron Collider in CERN. Stability, we had, I don't know if you know the project of Brian Eno, the long clock, not the clock of the long now, for example. We have the longing of eternal stability, which is also the 10 commandments which rule our society, the dream of eternal beauty, the dream of immortality, playing God. I mean, we also had a lot of examples of art and architecture because it was in a context of an art exhibition. So I can zoom in here on different parts. Also, of course, the dream of flying, which is a constant, what we saw in the cars, which I liked a lot, which is a constant dream, and it constantly comes back. So it's a direct line from angels to flying cars. And that's a constant dream. And I mean, these flying cars, you could place it next to a church image. And the church image was our future prospect image. So in the future, we will all be angels, and we all will be able to fly. And the priest told us this. Today, or let's say 50 years ago, it was science and it's technology. In the future, we all will fly, and we all will have more or less a heaven. What I didn't tell till now, I mean, with religion and science, it's very easy. I mean, this is a very also smooth transition from the promises we have, the religious promises and the scientific promises. And now, I mean, we made a speculation, the whole thing, that there will be probably a time after science, post-science, where, that's why we called it also believe, know and feel, where the feeling becomes another parameter for future thinking. It's a little, I mean, some little examples are Twitter, where, I mean, that goes a little bit into big data, where the feeling of the people in general influences our future. Like if Michael Jackson died, Twitter news went somehow dark, you could say. People were sad because there were so many people who were Michael Jackson fans. So a lot of sad tweets influence the stock exchange going down, and so on. So the feeling of people, that's a very simple example, but the feeling of people more and more influences, the feeling of the people more and more is taken in account in future thinking. And that could be the beginning of a post-scientific time, but this is, speculation. Okay, thank you.